Good morning, everyone. We have with us Mr. MLK Raja, creative and a dynamic personality with varied interests. It's a pleasure to have you here, sir, with us.
My pleasure. Thank you. I hail from Tamil Nadu and joined the Secretariat as a Group A officer.
So my question is, could you give us your experience in working with PAC?
What are the challenges a speaker faces in general?
But once he becomes a speaker, he or she is expected to be non-partisan in nature. So many parties, so many interests, and country like India, we have very.
Could you explain about the significance of consultative committees? Especially we have so much other committees.
See, the consultative committees or the
Good morning, everyone. We have with us Mr. MLK Raja, creative and a dynamic personality with varied interests. His record and his work experience shows that he has held various positions under the Speaker as well as the committees and has worked with them in various capacities. He has also held positions under the Ministry of External Affairs. It's a pleasure to have you here, sir, with us.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.
So tell us about yourself, sir, in general.
In general, okay. So I hail from Tamil Nadu and joined the Secretariat as a Group A officer in the year 2003. As a committee, a legislative, executive officer, that is the position which is equivalent to, we can say, the civil services entry point. And I've been working, assisting the many parliamentary committees, which includes the Privileges Committee, you would have heard about it. And I worked for the Finance Committee, and I worked in the legislature, assisting the Speaker in running the House. You would have seen the well of the House, if you know, the table below the Speaker. So the Secretary General sits just below the Speaker, and we speak, we sit along with the thing. So we assist them in running the House, helping her, in knowing the rules position when it comes to certain handling of situations. This is it. So I worked, yes, of course, I worked and I was on deputation, as you mentioned, in the Ministry of External Affairs. That was a fantastic exposure. I worked there for more than 4 years there. And apart from that, I worked on deputation again in a debt recovery tribunal. You would have heard about the NPAs, and the tribunals help the banks in recovering the loans. So at present, I am attached with the Secretariat to the Public Accounts Committee, which is called the mother of all parliamentary committees. That's it.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
This is Ilangovan, Amma IAS Academy Coordinator.
Wonderful.
So my question is, could you give us your experience in working with PAC?
The PAC. Okay. So as you're aware that it is the mother of all committees, means the first committees, So initially we had the so-called financial committees, which are Public Accounts Committee, Estimates Committee, and the Committee on Public Undertakings. These are the three financial committees. So at present I'm part of the Secretariat as a director. I have around 16 staff to assist me in serving the committee. The Public Accounts Committee is unique in a way that we always, as you are aware, that C&AG, Comptroller and Auditor General, he or she is the friend, philosopher, guide. And the officer, C&AG, and his deputies are always present during the meeting, which is not the case with any other committee. So why they are there? Because the committees examine the audit paras and the reports of the C&AG. So this is how they are there to assess the. So we are there, the Secretariat, and the C&AG is there, and the chairman sits and the member sits, and we take evidence of the various ministries. So essentially, because it is different from other committees, the parliamentary committees, you may be aware the departmentally related standing committees, which were coming to being in the year 1993 because of the feeling that the many of the demands for grants in common parlance, we can say budget demands, were not discussed in full, threadbare, and indirectly, ensuring the executive responsibility to legislature. So that is how the creation of this thing. So Public Accounts Committee, in essence, examines the audit paragraphs and reports. It doesn't restrict with that. Of course, the committee can select some other reports and on its own, subjects also for the examination. That's it.
Sir, I am Bhuvani, a mentor in MIS Academy. So my question is, what are the challenges the speaker faces in general?
The speaker, as you are aware, is the, he heads the Lok Sabha and he runs the Lok Sabha. Though he is elected from among the members and he belongs to a party, but once he becomes a speaker, he or she is expected to be non-partisan in nature. And as you know, in any democracy, running the house, conducting the house is a challenge now, particularly, when you have so many parties, so many interests, and country like India, we have varied interests, representations from different kinds. So, and as you know, that controlling, or I can say that it is allowing the treasury benches. We call the government side as treasury benches and the opposition benches. If you had seen the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha as well, the topmost person in Lok Sabha is the speaker, and the Rajya Sabha is the chairman and also vice president of the country. So he or she sits there and conducts the house. So the challenges, I feel that, in taking all the parties along and conducting a house in such a way that legislations are passed, the questions are answered properly and to the satisfaction of the members. The challenge lies in taking all the parties along. There is a mechanism called the speaker conducts an all-party meeting just before a session starts. So the speaker invites all the leaders of all the party and tell them about how it is going to go and what are their demands. So it's in a way, it's a mechanism to ensure the smooth conduct of the business. Though on practical sense, it's extremely difficult to sit in a position and control, or rather conduct the house.
Sir, myself, Seduram,
Mr. Seduram.
coordinator in MIS Academy.
Nice.
There's a question, sir.
Yes.
Could you explain about the significance of consultative committees? Especially we have so much other committees.
The parliamentary
In
committees
parliamentary
we
committees,
have.
yes, sir.
Yes, that's a good question. Actually, see, the consultative committees are the committees where it is headed by the concerned minister. For example, the Ministry of External Affairs, the Minister for External Affairs heads that thing. And that is where there will be a certain number of MPs representing all the parties in that consultative committee. It is not part of the Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. And it is not serviced, if I can say, by us, people like us. So we assist only the parliamentary committees, both the financial committees and other ad hoc committees and standing committees. So this helps, where if you see the differences, essentially, it is about the minister being part of the committee. Whereas in consultative committee, it is the minister who sits, who heads, who conducts the meeting. In parliamentary committee meetings, the minister is not part of the meeting. It is only the top head, that is a secretary in particular ministry or department, who represents and replies to the questions raised by the parliamentary committee. In a way, why this is that, that consultative committee is a different fora where individual interest and the constitutional interest are being conveyed directly to the minister in consultative, which is not the case with the parliamentary standing committees. So there it is more of a one-to-one with the MPs, with the minister direct, and more of constitutional interest. Here it is the national interest, and where it is the secretary who is the executive head. Executive head, of course, it is the minister. I can say permanent official head. So this is the essential difference. This is the purpose behind consultative committees. Thank you.
Good morning, sir.
Good. Yeah.
Introduced, sir, but I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Nishant and I'm a faculty here at AMA Academy. Sir, so coming a bit to the current situation with the corona and all that, Amartya Sen famously argues that democracy is better positioned to deal with crisis. So in this light, how can we, what could you tell us about the working of the parliament and how they're going about their functioning on a daily basis?
Right. Let me touch upon a little bit democracy and crisis. So what happens is that democracy decisions are not so fast as non-democratic countries are concerned. So democracy decisions take time. It's essentially you have to interact, take people, other parties along. That's a difficult task. But I strongly feel the decision so taken after consulting all the parties involved, the MPs, member of parliaments, is far better than a decision taken in a non-democratic setup. So coming to the functioning of the parliament in this situation, the Honorable Speaker and the Honorable Chairman, the Vice President of India, they've discussed this aspect, and they've directed the Secretaries General of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. The Secretary General is the topmost official position in each. So we have a Secretary General for Lok Sabha and Secretary General for Rajya Sabha. He or she is the head of the official hierarchy. Now coming to conducting the House, when I say House, it is Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, as well as the committees. The challenge of conducting online parliamentary committee meeting is this about the secrecy of the meeting. You may be aware that all the parliamentary committees are conducted in camera. What do I mean by in camera? In camera is in confidence. The public are not allowed. It is only the officials, the main officials like me who are part of the committee, assisting the committee, of course, the MPs and the evidence we call, only those people will be there. So essentially, the idea behind having in-camera proceedings is to have non-partisan discussions, free and frank from party ideologies, and work towards the improvement of the system and for betterment of the country. So now, coming to this online conducting parliamentary committee meetings, it is essentially contradicts the in-camera principle. For that also, what we need is something called, there is a system called rules committee. There are various committees, apart from these financial and departmentally related committees, which takes, this rules committee comes together under the speaker, head of the speaker for Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha for the chairman, is that they come together and decide about the amendments in rules and introducing new rules in conducting the House. Now, they have to sit first for this, and essentially to change, amend this thing, they need the approval of the House, that is Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, that is parliamentary thing. So essentially for that, again we are coming to this thing that the parliament has to assemble first. So that is the idea, crisis behind this, in the sense, if I can say, the challenge, I always say challenge is this. So, and as you're aware that 6 months should not lapse between two sessions, the end of one session and the beginning of, I think it comes in the first week of September, the 6 months time. So what I hear that they're going to have one House. It can be in many ways. It can be a physical meeting, where the members of parliament come and sit in the House in a particular confine, or Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha thing. Or it can be online, but it cannot be online because to change the rule, essentially it has to be. So it's a challenge, and Honorable Speaker and Honorable Chairman of Rajya Sabha they are into this, and I believe that there will be a solution to this challenge, and we'll come out successfully. Yeah. Thank you. So, if anything else that you'd like to ask?
Sir, one general question, sir.
Yes.
What are all the privileges for schools and college students to access the parliament?
Okay. Access the parliament. Now, as of now, if you want to visit the parliamentary premises and or witness a session, functioning of this thing, you need to get necessarily apply for it and get a pass for that, So, as of now, there are ways in which you can approach. You can take your local representative, that is your member of parliament, your constituency parliament. He or she can take up with us, the secretariat, and arrange for the visit, the educational institution, or the head of the educational institution, the principal of the particular institution, can write to the Secretary General, who is the topmost official, and requesting for that we have so many students and we would like to visit the parliamentary premises. Again, visiting the parliament, there are two aspects to it. One is during the session when the house is on, and another thing we call inter-session period, where the session is not on, it is the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha are in recess. So what happens is that during the session, one person can come through the MP concerned or through writing directly to the secretariat requesting for this thing as an institution, as an individual. And once you come there, you are allotted 1 hour. For example, the house starts, as you know, from 11 o'clock to 12 o'clock, 12 to 1 and 2 to 3 and so forth. So you will be given one slot, 11 to 12 or 12 to 1, something like that. So you are expected to be there, report, and you are taken along with after all the necessary security, frisking and protocol, which many people will feel cumbersome, a little irritated also. But one has to understand the security concerns, and it is the most important institution in the country. So it symbolizes, you may remember about the attack that happened on the parliament in 2002. So we are the parliament is more careful about that. So, and coming to the inter-session period, again, that will be a different perspective, because in the session you will come and you will made to sit in the visitors gallery, and it's like literally like you can watch the proceedings and within an hour and go out. For example, if you come during inter-session, that will be a different perspective together, because you will be taken around by a security official explaining about the Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, who sits where, how does it function, and that will be a different perspective. So normally I see both educational institutions come during the session as well as during the inter-session period also. I would suggest that every one of you should come and visit. I'll be happy to facilitate that.
Which session would you, for instance,
recommend? I would suggest that, being an aspirant of civil services, it will be really thrilling to see live. For example, you watch a cricket match on TV, and watching it alive is definitely, it gives a different experience, right? So I would rather bet more on the session time, witnessing the session, which will be quite interesting, yes.
I have a question, sir.
Yes,
Sir, you shared with us the experience about working in Ministry of External Affairs,
Yes.
and you have worked in committees where you have helped or facilitated attracting investments by the Indian states.
While working in the Ministry
While
of
working in the
External
Ministry of
Affairs,
External,
that's right.
yes, sir. So tell us how this is working, how Indian states are attracting investments, and are we moving into a proper federal structure, economically speaking, by attracting investments and all this?
That's right. That's a fantastic question. Yes, I was on deputation in the Ministry of External Affairs, and I was given posted in the division called States Division, which is now Economic and States Division. So what it does essentially, under the Honorable Prime Minister's directions, this division facilitates the Indian states in their international outreach. What do I mean by that? Is that earlier it used to be the center vouching for each state, and most probably it was coming through the center. the investments, other things. Now, it's a right direction we are going with, more of encouraging the states to go for individually going for attracting investments. It's a healthy competition, you know. So this particular division in the Ministry of External Affairs, where I worked for some years, helps the Indian states there are many ways. For example, as you're aware that every state has their own international investment summits. We're attracting Tamil Nadu, for example, they also conduct yearly annual thing. And Gujarat, as you know, that Vibrant Gujarat, you would have heard about it. It's a fantastic, thing. So what happens is that in the ministry, I as a part of the team used to help the states in accessing or in contacting the other foreign diplomatic representatives in Delhi. This is one point. For example, if the state exposes or briefs the ambassadors of foreign countries about their state, their ease of doing business, what are the incentives and other things they are going to come out with that. So they get, convinced, and they in turn they go to tell their country ministers and other government areas, to come out. Yes, we have Tamil Nadu, which has these things, advantages, and let us advise our trade and industry to go and explore and invest in this. So this particular division where I worked is this sort of assistance and help to each state. For example, I facilitated all the chief ministers of states, all the states, as well as the ministers concerned, industry, minister, international investments, in traveling abroad to the countries, particular countries, through our embassies, we call as missions, to contact the local, arrange for in meeting with the investors there. For example, we have industry bodies like Confederation of Indian Industry, FICCI, Federation of Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. So the foreign country, every country has their own trade industry bodies. So what our embassies mission does is that to facilitate meeting of particular state representatives with the particular thing. There they come to explain about the attractiveness of particular state in inviting investments. So these are the few things which I was doing as part of the states division.
How does the parliament ensures the executive responsibility towards the legislature, sir?
Towards legislature. Okay, it's more of every one of you and all the students would be aware about theoretically what happens, how does it ensures. See, as you're aware that we are in a parliamentary democracy. What does it mean? The government, the executive, comes out of the legislature. So they are always responsible, accountable, answerable to the legislature, that is the parliament. So now coming to many things, the instruments to which this is ensured is that first is the question hour, as you're aware. In question hour, as you know, that each member is allowed after a process to ask questions. There are two sets of types of questions, starred and unstarred questions. Starred question, as you know, that the minister concerned is supposed to answer in person to the house, to the particular member and the house at large. An unstarred question, there will be written replies which are tabled on the house. Each member has access. So this is one part of the question hour is one of the finest instruments of ensuring accountability of the executive towards legislature. And coming to committees where I've been working a lot, the committees, of course, because they constantly oversee the functioning, not in day-to-day administration, of course, it is not done. It is a policy level or programs, how they are being, that is done through a mechanism called standing committees, which, as you know, that there are the budget and there is something called demands for grants. So the committees examine, while demand for grants are examined, what happens is that they go back in year. If you see the budget documents, you can point out that the 2 years before, what happened, how much the actual allocation, how much they have spent, the savings. Savings essentially means that they could not spend, which was allotted by the parliament to spend on a particular aspect, and they could not spend it. So that is a problem. So the committees essentially find these gaps and ask, the particular ministry, the ministry per se, why this happened, why you could not, and interestingly, there are something overshoot the allocated funds also. So again, that comes to the purview of the committee, particularly the Public Accounts Committee, which takes care of this. And the committee and the House, the Lok Sabha, they have to approve this overspending also. For that also. So this is another instrument which ensures the executive accountability to the legislature. So these are the things that come to my mind as of now. Yeah.
So thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The session was indeed, enlightening, as well as there was a lot of effervescent energy also.
To
So
me
like they
also.
say,
With you all, yes.
a coming together of Platonic theory and Aristotelian pragmatic wisdom.
God.
Thank you so
My
much.
pleasure. Thank you so
sir.
much. Thank you.
sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you.